Welcome. Thanks for being here with me today, everyone, to discuss progressive delivery, specifically how we can leverage a tool like Argo Rollouts along with key business metrics to reduce risk and increase our confidence. And when I say increase our confidence, I don't just mean for the application team, the platform team, but actually increasing the confidence of our business partners and customers alike. Quick intro, I'm Eddie Webbinaro. I'm the global head of field engineering at CircleCI. I've been living in the CI/CD DevOps space for well over 10 years, coming on 15. Used to manage software delivery platforms at a Fortune 100 organization with 10,000 users. I love this stuff. And when I say this stuff, I'm talking about busting friction all the way from ideation to delivery and really accelerating that path to production as quick as possible. I also have a wonderful family. Here is my Blue Sky and GitHub handles if you're interested in checking me out on the socials. So let's jump into the agenda for today. I want to start with the intro. Hey, good news, we're already done that. Next up, I'm going to talk about architecture and technology. What's actually behind this platform. Look at some of the setup and configuration that I'm using in order to enable this. Then we'll jump into a little demo conversation at the end. And I'll wrap with some key resources that you can take away should you wish to pursue this on your own. Y'all have probably heard the expression, move fast and break things. The reality is we can't afford to break things in this current marketplace. There are too many competitors. Our customers have set a really high expectation of what functional technology looks like, and they will just no longer tolerate an experience that continues to introduce friction and problems for them in their daily experience. So we can't break things, but we need to move fast. I think ideally what we actually are striving for is a model of moving fast and recovering quickly. So when we do accidentally introduce regressions, we can detect and remediate before it impacts the users in a notable way. The technology stack we're going to look at today is a Kubernetes cluster. We're running in AWS across multiple regions for global redundancy. We're going to use Istio for our service mesh and importantly our ingress gateways. Argo Rollouts, as I mentioned in the kickoff, is going to be the technology that actually informs how we progressively handle our releases. And we're doing that using canary deployments as opposed to a blue-green methodology. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Prometheus is providing some key monitoring for us, not just of our application health, but of the business metrics that drive our decision making. And we're using CircleCI to orchestrate the process overall from our CI/CD pipelines. The diagrams I'm about to show were generated by Mermaid. As far as architecture goes, let me move my face here. We're basically looking at a pretty straightforward Kubernetes deployment. We've got an external gateway picking up traffic from the internet, and in this case, our demo load generator that routes traffic down to a virtual gateway. That gateway in turn hands it over to a service, which gives us a stable, fully qualified domain we can always reference, no matter how many pods are behind it. The problem with this current model, as I'm sure you're all aware, is that an outage in that one single replica set, whether it's one pod or 100 pods, means a total outage for our service. And that's why the idea of canary deployments or blue-green deployments became popular. A canary deployment is where we progressively introduce a new replica set and slowly change traffic from the stable service or existing service over to that new service or canary service. As we're doing that, it's important that we're monitoring the state of that new service to make sure that it's healthy and performing the way we expect it to. The conversation today, I'd argue, is that we need to look beyond simple resource limits and error rates and actually understand that in order to be effective with our monitoring, we need to incorporate business metrics. We need to understand what is healthy from a business standpoint and use that to inform our rollouts or our rollbacks. So in our simple example here, it's a trivial application, Circle Shop. It has three functions. It exposes metrics to our Prometheus server. It provides a mock checkout experience, which will basically represent a key transaction for our business. And that will pass or fail depending on input we provide. And then it will drive some mock user loads, just so I don't have to sit here and click checkout 100 times during the demo. Now, I talked about key business metrics being the right things to inform the decision making. So we think about a website that provides a shopping experience, an e-commerce site. High level, what are some key steps? Step one, you get users to your site. That's a consideration of the products you offer. Step two, they show intent by actually adding some of those items to their shopping cart. Really great progress so far, but as of yet, not earning revenue for the business. This final step, ideally, aside from shipping and delivery, is that they make the purchase. They actually signal that purchase by providing payment in the checkout experience. These two steps in the middle, or rather, in between the steps, are what we consider key conversions here, right? They move items into their shopping cart, and then they check out that shopping cart and result in a purchase. So those are some examples of key conversions that we want to think about in the experience here. So let's jump over to my demo application. And what we're looking at here is actually just the rollout definition. A rollout is provided by the Argo project. It's a drop-in replacement for your deployments. It looks very similar to deployment as far as the metadata spec goes. What we care about is the rollout strategy, which is part of this payload. We're using a canary strategy. We're providing it with some analysis templates that it can use to evaluate. You can do any number of templates here. So you could look at error rates, but we're going to look at the checkout rate and the checkout count as complementary metrics. And then we're also going to use that to inform how traffic is actually routed. You can do simple routing, just basically I've got 10 pods, 10% would be one of those pods, but I really like the idea of using something like Istio or any other of your load balancers, gateways to actually get very concrete and specific in how you route traffic. And Argo will automatically manage this destination rule behind the scenes for you and slowly shift the amount of traffic. How does it know what your desires are? It will do that based on what you define as steps here. So while this analysis job is running, we're going to start to roll out traffic, starting at 10% of our users and then waiting 5 minutes, 30%, 70%, and ultimately 100% before waiting another 5 minutes just to make sure everything is looking good in this canary service before we consider this rollout successful and tear down that old stable version. I mentioned these two key metrics right here, checkout rate and checkout and conversion rate. So quickly, I want to jump over to Prometheus. So I've just got those two metrics here, right? So right now I'm looking at our conversion rate. This is actually a metric exposed directly by our shopping cart, our shopping app, and it will tell us at any given moment what percent of shopping carts have resulted in a purchase over the last, let's say 10 minutes. So right now we're actually doing really good. Almost 80% of our shopping carts are being checked out. That's super high. We must have a great promotion running at this time. And we can track how, we can track how that's trending over time. You can see it fluctuates at any given moment, kind of up and down. We're going anywhere between 60 and 80% conversion rate. That's awesome. But we want to look beyond rate, because if we just have, 2 users visit the platform and they both check out, that's 100% conversion, but it's not actually great for business. So we actually want to look at raw counts as well. So this is looking at how many checkouts have occurred in aggregate over a particular time period. So this is looking at checkouts per second. And we can see that we're hovering around 16, right? So that's actually not only are you getting a good conversion rate, but we're getting high volume through the platform. And that indicates health and success for us. Jumping back over to our code for another second, we can actually see how those metrics are defined. So just like we put into Prometheus UI there, that's what I define as my analysis criteria. I want to look at the checkout count, a window over the past 90 seconds, give me that, per second checkout rate. Wait 30 seconds after we start up, wait 30 seconds after we start up, and then recheck this every 30 seconds over the course of the rollout. We were averaging about 16. I want to make sure it's always above 10, or at least no more than 5 times does it fall below 10. On the conversion side, we were hovering 60 to 80%. What does our rule say? Got to be at least 40%. And here we're only looking at the canary service. In the UI I showed you, we were looking at stable because that's what's out there in production. For the rollout, we actually want to evaluate just the performance of our canary service individually and that we're seeing that high conversion rate. So with that outlined as far as what it looks like, let's go ahead and jump back over to our Chrome here and we'll go ahead and kick off a quick demo. This is what our workflow looks like. We start by building the application. Actually, I'll just kick this off first and then we'll talk about that. So we've got a pipeline running here. We start by publishing our artifact to an repository like Artifactory or Nexus or Docker Hub. It's not exposing users to it. We just have it somewhere that we can use it. Then we start to release it out to users. And this is where we're going to introduce it to our Kubernetes environment and incrementally expose traffic to it. And then we're going to monitor release and see how it performs over time. Well, that kicks off. I can show you what a previous release looks like. This was our successful one. We introduced version 156 out here. And we can see that we used that traffic to 10%, 30%, 70%, 100, waiting in between those. We can also see that all along the time we are running background validation here. It's got the last couple of runs here that our checkout conversion rate for the canary is healthy. We're at 75%, great. and that our checkout count total was meeting some key threshold here. If we jump back to my component, we can see we've published the artifact to our repository, and we're now introducing it out to environments. So I should see it show up shortly here in our deployment list. And there we see our new version show up. We went from 156 to 157. We can drill into either one of these. We'll take a look at the North American release. And we can see that we've set traffic to 10% of our users, and now we're in this waiting period. While waiting, we're also going to run this background analysis. And so it takes a minute for it to first fire off. Oh, the first one was set to wait for 30 seconds, right? So we can see we're only at, just shy of 30 seconds before the first one shows up. We said we had to have at least a 10% count of checkouts. Our Canary version is running around 15. That's great. That seems to match our production stable version. We said that we had to see at least 40% success in our conversion. We were seeing 80 before in their stable version, and it looks like our Canary is performing just as well. So here, this rollout, if these numbers continue, is going to be allowed to proceed without issue. I can jump into the history here and quickly see if we have a failed version. What happened here is this one failed because our success rate was failed. It was not within our allowable limits, and so it actually failed that rollout completely and automatically rolled back to the historic version. That's all powered by Argo Rollouts underneath the cover. CircleCI is just helping us visualize it here. Another cool thing we can do is just go ahead and promote this up. Let's say we want to get to a particular stage of rollout, or we can promote the entire thing as a whole. But I don't want to spend more time here in our UI. Let's jump back over to our wrap up. Sorry, I was so focused on getting this done in a timely manner that I skipped over, I think, two really important and cool aspects I do want to highlight for you quickly before we wrap. First is this idea of metadata. I jumped over it before in our rollout definition, but we can actually instruct Argo to inject our containers or our pods with specific metadata. And so in this case, I've created a label called Canary Status. I'm going to tell my stable ones to be labeled as stable. I'm going to tell my Canary ones to be labeled as Canary. So that I can actually expose as an environment variable inside those pods so that they can report it out to things like our Prometheus metrics. And so that means if we take a quick look over on our app side, and we're exposing the metrics, you'll also see it indicates which version it came from. In this case, it came from a stable one, because we're now completed this roll. Actually, let me refresh. We should be at 157, right? So we're now running version 157 in prod. That's stable. In Prometheus, I can then see that charted back here. So I can see that our previous version, release candidate 156, as our rollout increased to 10%, this one dropped down 10%, and our new version 157 came up, and then we did a 30% jump, and so our old version slowly ramped down while the new version slowly took on that traffic. And so you can actually see over time our total traffic is consistent across these, but our stable version took less and less of that traffic, while our Canary version took on more and more of it. And so that's just a great way that Argo is, pushing those key metrics into the system so you have that availability to make informed decisions about your rollouts. All right. Back to the wrap up. I mentioned I'd leave you all with some resources here. Sorry, let me move my face again. I'll share some links afterwards. I'm not sure how to distribute those, but Istio docs are great, both on how you install it, configure key gateways, services, and destination rules. You're also going to want to set up Argo Rollouts. Again, amazing resources there on the installation. I showed you the key assets, which are your analysis templates, how you query something like Prometheus, as well as how you define your rollout overall. Basically a drop-in placement for deployments. And then finally, CircleCI releases, which is our ability to visualize and influence the rollouts that are happening with tools like Argo Rollouts in your Kubernetes cluster. And we also have AsiaLinux deploys to support you outside of Kubernetes. I really hope that y'all took away something from this conversation today. I certainly enjoyed it. If you have any questions, you're welcome to follow up with me. I shared my social handles earlier on. And I hope you have a great conference, everyone.